Words.
This is b4Nashville Live. Have a question for our guest?
Send it to us via Messenger.
Here's your host, George Davis.
And welcome back to b4Nashville, to the country fans of today. And for some reason, my camera's not there. It is. Now we're working. So tonight, I've got a guy joining me, and I'm gonna throw out a little tease here. I told him a different way of doing this, so just hang with me, and we'll get it all figured out. But he's got a very good story about getting to Nashville. He's got a fantastic voice, very soulful, very old school. You're gonna love him, and we're going to talk to him coming up here in 30 seconds.
b4Nashville is proudly sponsored by Go-Go Tuners, the go-to tuner for professional and amateur musicians. Get your Go-Go Tuner at gogotuners.com. By Heart to Heart Coffee, the coffee that gives back. Find out more at heart2heartcoffee.com. By Cibby's Apparel, worn by heroes, made with respect. Order yours at cibbysapparel.com. And by Three Rangers Whiskey, not for the weak or faint-hearted. ThreeRangers.com.
And I want to give a big thank you to all of our sponsors and all that they do for us. Tonight, I've got a guy joining me who he's got quite the story of getting to Nashville. We're going to talk about that a little bit, how music can make you do some odd things. I'll ask him that question as well. So that's coming up. Raleigh Keegan. Let's go ahead and bring Raleigh on. Raleigh, how are you, my man?
Hey, man. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, thanks for coming on. Really appreciate you joining me tonight. And we're going to talk a little bit about your backstory. I know that it's very different from a lot of people, but it's a very interesting story. And then we'll talk about some other things. But let's just start off talking about the childhood and things like that. You know, get into what you want to get into, what
Sure.
you want to start from. I'm not going to pressure you into doing anything.
Oh, no, man. You're good. I'm an open book. I was adopted when I was a baby, 4 days after I was born. Birth mom had me when she was in prison. And fast forward, I actually got to meet her probably, I guess it was 4 years ago now when I first met her. But anyways, was raised kind of in the suburbs of Cincinnati, had awesome parents who adopted me. And I also have a brother who looks nothing like me. We come from different families. I'm 6'4", he's 5'10" with red hair. We look nothing alike. Yeah, it's very funny. But we had an awesome childhood. We were involved in music really early, and sports really early. My parents were pretty good about getting us to do all the things. I mean, man, like I wasn't allowed to eat. I was a big kid, right? So I wasn't allowed to eat dinner unless I practiced 30 minutes on the piano. You know what I'm saying? So I was practicing.
You wanted to eat, man. You had to have that
wanted
fuel.
to eat.
So, and about the age of 8, I mean, you got introduced to piano and you kind of picked it up and really enjoyed it. It sounded like. Now, the story about the piano I really like, and I'm going to let you tell that because I was reading it and I thought, man, that is really cool.
Yeah. Well, my parents, I should talk about them a little bit. They're the type of people who, I mean, man, they have sacrificed so much for me and my brother. You know, they're the type of people that they find joy from giving to other people.
Right.
So I should start with that. So anything that me and my brother needed, or any opportunity or anything like that, they wanted to open that door for us. So my parents also, you know, my dad was a bus driver, mom was a nurse, but they were like incredibly frugal people, and still are, but they found this free piano up in Michigan. So we drove I remember it because it was a Sienna minivan. Everybody used to have those. We had a Sienna minivan and we drove it up to Michigan, probably almost 8 hours, and put this upright piano in the back of it and drove it all the way home. And that was the piano I learned how to play on. It was out of tune the day we got it, and it's never been in tune. So, and that's probably why, like, when I do records now, dude, there's not one. I don't have on any record I've ever released. There's not any in tune pianos on the record. Like not one, because I don't like them. I literally don't like. Yeah, I like them. I think they have more character when they're a little slightly out of tune.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, that's an interesting fact right there. I mean, that right there would make somebody go, "Oh, wow," that's really cool. And your brother would get a little frustrated because it seemed like music just came more natural to you for whatever reason, right?
Yeah, but here's the deal though. My brother's really smart. Um, so he music and sports came more naturally to me. So like I think that there was always this kind of we were always competitive, but like at the end of the day, I think he knew he was smarter than me. So so it was kind of like, I mean, dude, now he's married to like a super successful pharmacist. He's a speech pathologist. Uh yeah, man, he's just, and I'm doing this.
You're chasing the dream that
Yeah.
a lot of people, are just like, golly. But as life went on, of course, you got into sports, you went to college, you got out of college, you became a personal trainer,
Yeah.
which I mean, I can see some looks like workout equipment there in the background. And
My
so
wife's got a Peloton. I'm not a Pelotoner though,
oh, okay.
but I
Okay.
go to the gym. But I'm just I can't make myself work out at home.
I would say I hear you, but I can't make myself work out, period.
Dude, I feel that. Yes. My
I
type of guy.
try, I really do, but it's like life is super busy. So it's like, and I know that's an excuse. I should not make excuses, but that's my story and I'm sticking to it.
Do
Okay.
you, man? Do you?
So let's talk about getting into music. I mean, what were the influences that you had musically growing up?
Yeah, so this is interesting because I didn't fall in love with country music until I was like, I guess I was 21. Um,
Wow.
yeah, I grew up, man. I grew up in like, but here's the thing: like, I grew up on James Taylor, right? But James
Mhm.
Taylor's more country than half of what comes out. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Half of what comes out today. So, I mean, but I grew up in like the Eagles and James Taylor, and Dad was a real big Billy Joel fan, Elton
Hmm.
John, Queen. Um, but really, man, I would say like the Eagles really did form a foundation for me of music growing up.
Yeah.
And then like the closest I got to country was like Garth Brooks. And then I didn't fall in love with country music until my now wife introduced me to Zach Brown Band. Their
Oh.
kind of early stuff like Colder Weather, Sweet Annie,
Hmm.
some of that's the Highway 20 ride. I just was like smitten, man. I was like, golly, this just takes you to a place, and this is what I want to do. And we actually live in the country now, and it's just really natural for me now.
Right. So when you heard like Zach Brown Band and all that, and you're smitten with country, as you say, at what point did you say that's the direction I'm going to go?
Yeah, so I started after being introduced to that record. I started writing songs, and I probably wrote like, I don't know. I think it was like 80 songs, something like that, in half a year. So I was writing a lot on my lunch break as a personal trainer, and I actually recorded like 6 of those songs. They were demos that I recorded in Lexington, Kentucky, where we were living,
Mhm.
and they started to work online, even though, dude, they were horrible. They're not online anymore. But I started with that, and they helped me kind of build an online thing, and I really got hooked, and so kept writing. And my wife agreed to sell our house so we could pay for my first project and go all in, which was
Wow.
insane. Looking back on it was insane because um when you're green like I was and you don't know anything about the industry, you I mean, like, dude, this industry is such a wild ride.
Oh yeah.
And there's no real science to it. Um so anyways, the whole point of me saying that was because it was so crazy that we did that. You know, I don't think
Right.
I would recommend that to someone, but at the same time, what you said earlier is true. Like our dreams, it could be a music dream, it could be anything. Like they cause us to do crazy things sometimes, you know,
Yeah.
and to accomplish something, you know, like this is it's crazy, you know. So I totally get you there.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost, a lot of people say, I just love country music. But when you do something like that, it is like a love like you cannot understand. It's like falling in love with your wife or your husband,
Mm,
you know. It's that love that will cause you to do things that later on you look back and you go, I think I was out of my mind.
for sure. I totally relate to that because there's something about um music and writing for me that has been a therapy for me that has helped me so much. That sounds like such a cliche answer coming from an artist, but like man, if if my wife, if I don't write a song for a whole month, my wife will know because I'll be like in a hole, you know,
Uh-huh.
like it's just the way it is. It's there's something about it, you know. They always say that you don't choose the music chooses you. That's
Right.
an interesting way to think of it because I think there's definitely some truth in it. Like there's I don't know. There's just some truth in that. So
Right. Now, and with you saying, you know, if you go without a whole month of writing, your wife knows because you're in such a hole. Um, were you a pretty um I don't want to say it brought you down, but with the pandemic and not being able to get out and perform and stuff like that, were you a very happy person because you got a lot of time to write?
dude, during the pandemic, man, I was thriving. I didn't even know. I didn't realize that I needed a break.
Mm.
Man, I was on the road. We were doing over 200 dates touring for multiple years in a row. So we were gone a lot. But you know, I got to write. I think I wrote during in 2020. I think I wrote over 200 songs. So uh, really enjoyed that and was gifted a piano during that time. So I got to write on that a bunch. But am I a happy person? I wouldn't say, I'm saying, here's what's interesting about me, man, is I'm probably bent towards unhappiness for sure. And it's, that's just me being honest. And I think
Right.
that a lot of that is why artists make good music if they're honest about what's going on with them and
Right.
what the realities of this broken world that we live in, so
Well,
at least you know I might it might not sound that sexy to say I'm not a super happy person, but at least I'm not lying.
right. Well, that's, I mean, you know, it's better to be truthful because, you know, the truth will set you free and it's eventually going to come out anyway. So, but with you saying that and you talking about your writing and how you wrote so much, um, of course, at that time, a lot of people were into Zoom writing, and you don't really get into a room with writers and stuff. And you've got quite a list of amazing writers that you have written with. I mean, I was looking it over earlier, and just some of the people like you've got Jason Matthews, who's written for Luke Bryan. You got Will Nance, that wrote for George Strait, and then others. And I mean, these are like uh, A-list writers. You know, they're writing for a lot of major artists, and not being able to get that personal feel of writing, because I mean, I've heard from so many artists when you're writing and you're doing it face to face, it's a whole lot different than when you're doing it by Zoom because you get more of that. There's a lot more interactive feel when you do it, you know, and there's just, you just pick up on the vibes of everybody, I guess is the best way to put it when you're in a room together.
Yeah, I actually like both of them for different reasons. I like I like Zoom writing because there's way less pressure, right? Like I like it because we're all still in our house. If we don't get a song or if we don't get a good song, we're just at home, you know?
Right.
Like it's not a big deal. Just we'll go. I call songwriting basically fishing. We'll go fishing tomorrow and try again. But there is definitely there's advantages to Zoom too, because you can't talk over each other. You can't like play at the same time. So you actually have to like listen. And here's the other thing too. If a song moves you emotionally over Zoom, then that thing is a banger. That thing is a winner, because
Right.
like there is not that emotional connection. So when something's moving you over Zoom, I mean, that's a pretty powerful indicator that something's going right. But at the same time, like there's not, dude, one of the best parts about this job is just like hanging out with the writers, you know, and
Right.
just like getting to know them and chatting. So like there's advantages and disadvantages to both.
And once you get to know a writer and you get to hang out with them and you get a relationship built with them, it makes it a lot. I don't know that it makes it easier to write with them, but you kind of get to the point where you understand where they're headed with a certain like phrase or something like that, where you can come in and go, "Oh, I like that," or "What if we twisted it a little bit?" That kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that that's super helpful, because like it also takes when you're writing with big timers, like big name people, uh man, I don't care who you are, you're just nervous the first time. Like
Right.
you're just like, I remember writing with Casey Beathard, who wrote Don't Blank for Kenny Chesney, and a ton of hits for Eric Church. She Loves Me Like Jesus Does, a bunch of them. And I was so intimidated to write with him the first time. I just lost. I was terrible that day, because it was like, my goodness, like he's a freaking legend. Um, but I think, and after a couple times though, when you like build that relationship, it's just more, they understand you, what you want to say as an artist. It's just like there's a learning curve to it. It's very rare that you get into a room with people and you immediately click. They've got to learn you, you've got to learn them.
Right. So, who are some of the people that have influenced the way that you write songs?
Mm. Well, what comes to mind immediately is the Beatles, because I watched an interview or something where one of the things the Beatles don't do is over edit. And
Mhm.
in Nashville, people are so good at lyrics that they kind of like, it's a lyric town. I mean, it's an unbelievably, people can craft amazing songs. But what I always find interesting about the Beatles is that they would just let things come out, and sometimes they don't even make sense, but they feel good. So like
Right.
oftentimes I'll get in trouble when I'm writing with really pop country leaning writers, because
Mhm.
I'm just letting it flow out, and I'm just like throwing paint at the wall and seeing what sticks. And oftentimes they'll look at me and they'll be like, "But what does this mean?" And I'll be like, "I don't know, but I like it." You know what I'm saying? Um, like I always, my argument is almost always like, you tell me what Hotel California means by the Eagles. Tell me. And they're like, "Well, I don't know." And I'm like, exactly. Exactly. You don't know. And how many freaking times has that song been played?
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I
Yeah.
guess what I'm saying is like, in a way, I love to bend the rules. Like I know all the rules, but and you have to know the rules of Nashville songwriting. But I think picking and choosing where you bend and break and to make a song interesting is what I love to do. But as far as just the crafting of a song, I can't think of one person. I can think of a group of writers who, when I was first starting out, I didn't know how things operated and how a co-write should even go. So it was just a group of people that I was just kind of in rooms with learning. And
Right.
I mean, Casey Beathard does come to mind. Like I remember thinking, all I need to do is go in here and learn, shut my mouth and listen, you know? and that's what I try to do. And you just try to soak in. I mean, these guys are so quick and so good at what they do, man. It's ridiculous. It's like when you've been writing songs for a couple decades, like
Right.
they're so like quick.
And that's the cool thing about it, because I mean, as a young, I guess you'd say, budding writer at the time, and you're wanting to learn that stuff, that quickness helps you to get through the process. Of course, a little faster, but
Well, it also keeps you on your toes because you got to pick it up. You got to pick it up, and you've got to learn the social cues of the writing room. Like that just takes time. You can't. You got to learn when you shouldn't talk anymore, and you got to learn sometimes when somebody's on a roll that day. You might be in a room with somebody who's just, for whatever reason, on, and everything they're saying is gold. You need to not have an ego, and you need to like go with the muse and listen.
right.
So I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah, and that's a great way to put it for people that have never been involved in a songwrite before, and you kind of, I mean, you're sharing a lot about it that a lot of artists haven't shared, as far as, there's certain things that you have to look for, the social cues, and being aware of what that person is capable of, for one, and then where they're going that day, and just everything you've said. And that's one of the things that I really like, to be able to expose some of that, and so that people can understand it more as to what goes on. It's not sitting down on the back porch and writing out some words and putting music to it and bam, you're done. Although sometimes it does
Sometimes
occur
it is. Yeah.
like that. Yeah. But for the most part, there are thought processes that go into the songs. And then a song, not every song takes you, 10, 15, 20 minutes to write. So it's cool to have all that kind of, roundedness of what's happening. For those that do not write, like myself, I mean, I'm not a songwriter. Um, what is one song that you have said to yourself, man, I wish I would have written that song?
Sand in My Boots, the new Morgan Wallen. I don't even know if it's a single.
Yeah.
Man, it's pretty rare when like a pop country thing, like
Right.
it's pretty rare for me to be jealous of that stuff. There's not very much that comes out that I'm like, I love that. But man,
Right.
that is one of the best songs I've heard in, like, I don't know, 10 years or something like that. That is a very, very well written song, and it moves me. I think the reason too is because it moves me emotionally. It takes me to a place.
Yeah.
We Josh Osborne was on that song. We used to be managed by the same people, but he
Okay.
I love a lot of his writing, man. He's just so good. I mean,
Oh
he
yeah.
can do Sand in My Boots, but he was on that One Margarita song for Luke Bryan. So it's,
Yeah.
that's what I mean. The gamut of talent in this town is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is absolutely unbelievable. Um, Now, when it comes to like your singing and the style that you kind of picked up there, um, who are some of the people that you've looked up to, as far as your that goes? I mean, we
Yeah,
kind
I
of
would
talked about
definitely say
singing.
Zach Brown for sure. But when I was first getting into country, I loved Josh Turner. I love
Hmm.
Josh Turner. Always was a Michael Bublé fan. Always was a John Mayer fan. Always was a James. I love James Taylor's voice. It's warm. It's really easy to listen to. Really warm. I would also say Brothers Osborne is the same for that. It's kind of that we kind of had the same resonant lower kind of timbre, and but yeah, all of those guys. And honestly, man, Chris Stapleton. Like, I wish if there was someone I wish I could sing like, it would be Chris Stapleton.
There's a lot of people that wish that. Let me tell
Oh
you.
yeah.
Um, Now, if you had to classify your type of country, and let me kind of expound on that before we get to the answer, because this is the way I view country. And I mean, it's everybody that watches and listens, they know that I've been in country radio for like 12 years. I've been in radio more than half my life. But when listen to country, it's just like setting up your computer. I put it into folders, like I've got pop country, I've got country rock, I've got, there's country rap, there's what I call mainstream, there's classic and that. What folder would you put your music into if you had to describe it to somebody by that?
So the problem is the folder that I think it's in doesn't exist. So the reason I say that is like, I think it depends on the project too. But like
Right.
the project that I'm currently releasing, I would have to put that into like a country music meets American music, which means to me, that means like country music meets Tom Petty meets
Mhm.
the Eagles meet, it's kind of that classic rock meets country sound.
Right.
There's elements of both. So it's somewhere, here's what it is. It's Raleigh Keegan country. And it's somewhere between country and rock with some pop melody sensibilities. That's what it. And honestly, man, the reason I'm having a hard time even telling you what it is because when I'm writing, I'm literally only listening to the inner voice that says, do I like this or not? Like I'm
Right.
never, ever, ever thinking, is this country? Is this not country? I'm only thinking like I'm listening internally. I'm thinking, does this move me? That's it. That's the only question I ever ask. I never ask, will my manager like this? Will my, people like this? I never ask that because that's the easiest way to write a terrible song, in my opinion.
Right. Right. So you're not one of those, because I mean, I've heard people say, "Oh, well, I write, for radio." Well, why? You know?
Yeah. So I understand why writers do that. Like, but as an artist,
Hmm.
nah, man, I write what moves me and hopefully it gets on the radio. Um,
Yeah.
I think, man, if you just talk to, I've been doing a lot of, not research, but there's a ton of good documentaries out. You can listen
Right.
to like the Tom Petty documentaries on, I think it's on Amazon, but there's a good
Okay.
Queen one. There's an Amy Winehouse one. There's an Eagles one that's really, really good. But the reason I'm saying that is, man, all those people, I don't think they were thinking about that stuff at all. I really think they were thinking about just trying to make music they liked, and make it as good as they could possibly make it, and then let the cards fall where they fall. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Well, and I kind of feel like that a lot of those artists, the phrase, I write for radio or whatever. I feel like that's kind of a newer phrase that people need to just step away from and don't write for the radio because, um, you know, um,
We know, we know, like we people know when something's not real, like.
right.
And when you're coming at a song with that sentence before it, I'm writing this for radio, that's
Mhm.
not real. And that might come off as critical, but like coming at from an artist perspective, I could never approach a song that way. Now, there are super talented songwriters and probably
Mhm.
artists too who can do that. I'm just saying, me personally, like
Right.
I cannot write anything good if that sentence was attached to it, because it would just be in my head and it would be blocking the creativity.
Right. Well, let's do this. Let's take a quick break. We're gonna share some of your music. We're gonna come back and talk about it because I want to get into some of the stuff that you've done, and then delve into some more and kind of find out, a little bit more about Raleigh Keegan. So we're going to come back to Raleigh here in just about 30 seconds right after, and then we're going to play his latest single, which I believe was just released last week, if my memory serves me correct. So we're going to play that coming up here in 30 seconds. So stick around.
b4Nashville is proudly sponsored by Go-Go Tuners, the go-to tuner for professional and amateur musicians. Get your Go-Go Tuner at gogotuners.com. By Heart to Heart Coffee, the coffee that gives back. Find out more at heart2heartcoffee.com. By Civvy's Apparel, worn by heroes, made with respect. Order yours at civviesapparel.com. And by Three Rangers Whiskey, not for the weak or faint-hearted. 3rangers.com.
All right, so like we said, Raleigh's got a new single he just released, and we're going to play that for you right now. And it's a great song. It's called "How's the View in New York." Is it New York City, right?
New York City, yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to get that right. So, and then we'll come back. We'll talk about the song and about some other stuff. All right, that's coming back. Here's Raleigh Keegan with "How's the View in New York City."
How's the view? Tell me how you've been. What's been going on? What'd you have for breakfast? Or are you skipping it again? I don't wanna make you late, 'cause I know you catch the bus. Is that the one that takes you downtown? Or is it uptown? I wouldn't know, I've never been. How's the view in New York City? Is it as pretty as they say? Do those lights take your breath away? Tell me, do you miss me like I miss you? How's the view, New York City? I've been doing fine. Got a job that pays the rent, but I'm a little drunk right now, and you're spinning in my head. I hate to hold you up, but you left your jacket here. I know it's getting cold there. Is it cold there? Let me know. How's the view in New York City? Is it as pretty as they say? Do those lights take your breath away? Tell me, do you miss me like I miss you? How's the view, New York City? How's the view in New York City? Is it as pretty as they say? Do those lights take your breath away? Tell me, do you miss me like I miss you? How's the view, New York City? How's the view?
And that was Raleigh Keegan with "How's the View in New York City." That song, now that comes off of your latest EP that's called A Tale of Seven Cities. And each song is basically about a different city that you have visited throughout your life.
Yep.
Or, been in or something like that. So, um, that particular song, I'm going to give you my take on it, and then I'm going to come back and let you
Yeah.
interject. First off, that song to me puts me in the mind of winter, like
Uh-huh.
Christmas time. It's got a very non-traditional Christmassy feel. I mean, the whole time I'm listening to the song, I'm like seeing the lights in Times Square and seeing snowfall and the trees, Christmas trees and everything. I don't know why that song just kind of gave me that vision in my head.
Yep. Yeah.
And
I think I wrote it in December. But yeah, that was kind of the goal for that one, was to, man, it was kind of like I was trying to merge the country feel of my music with
mhm,
what I envision New York City sounds like. So
right.
it was an attempt to, like, with my kind of voice, my country soul voice, and the
Mhm,
steel guitar in the background, mixing that with, like, I mean, I wrote that song on the piano, and I mean, it's basically out of Billy Joel's playbook. You know what I'm
right,
saying?
right.
So I kind of merged those two worlds, and that was the goal for that one.
I mean, from in my honest opinion, my IMHO, as people put in their text and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
Um, that song is it's like a crossover that can be played at any point. I mean, you can hear that on all kinds of radio stations, whether it's a country station, it could be a pop station, or
yeah.
kind of like a lighter rock station. And that, I love country music, absolutely love it, and wouldn't be in any other part of radio, even though I've
Yeah.
worked in every format out there. But that just said a lot to me about the way that you wrote that song and the way that you do write. Because I mean, I've listened to your other songs as well, and like "New to Nashville," very storytelling songs, and that's country.
Hmm.
Doesn't matter if it sounds poppy or anything else. If you can tell a story in it, that's country.
For sure. I think
Yeah.
I do think that country music to me lends itself to real instruments. I'll say that
Mhm.
personally.
Right.
But I do think the thread between all of it, even if it's not real instruments, is the storytelling.
Mm.
Like dude. If you ask anybody in this town, like what got them into it, it's almost always the storytelling. Like
Yeah.
almost always. I think it's the most attractive part about country music.
Right. And it often makes me wonder because I mean, like I said, I worked at every format imaginable, from talk radio to top 40 radio, and of course the country. But then you listen to these songs and you're going, there's not a story there. I mean, it doesn't take you, because if you think about a story, it's got a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it all kind of flows together. And some of those songs, they just have no flow to them. It's like just a bunch of word vomit. They
Yeah.
just stuff out there. And that's one of the things I love about country music. I love the way that country just takes you through, just like that song. I mean, like I said, when I'm listening to it, it's 75 degrees outside. It's a nice, well, started off to be a fairly decent day. Of course, then we
Yeah.
had thunderstorms, but it was a really nice day to listen to it today. And I'm just like, man alive, it just made me feel like, like I said, it was Christmas time, it was wintry. The score, the music, everything just sounds perfect
Well,
for
thank you,
that.
man. Yeah, we
Um,
put a lot of I'm really proud of that one. It's
mhm,
it was a little bit of I was a little scared to release it because it's like a lot of the stuff I've released in the past has been just more country than that song.
right.
I'm not silly. I understand it's a little different than what I have released, but I don't know, man. I've just got such a wide, you know, gamut of influences that it's hard for me to. I'm always gonna write country songs and be in this genre, but it's like sometimes I just want to screw around and make something up, make something cool. I don't know, like,
Right.
yeah,
Right. Now, I mean, like, if you go back to your like your EPs and stuff, one of these days is one that was your, I think that was your first EP that you put out, and then you came back with a Clocks Roll Forward, and the songs on those, like you said, they are more the country, a little bit heavier on some of the country influences and the music and the wording and stuff. But the Tale of Seven Cities, listening to each one of those, they all have that kind of um like an old school soul sound to them.
yeah. Um, I think I totally agree. Um, what I love about this project, and people will see when the full thing's out, but each city has its own like sonic identity. So New York City to me sounds like New York City.
Mhm.
Tucson sounds. My brother's in Tucson. That's when I came up with that song.
Okay.
Um, that song feels like what Tucson felt like to me when I was there. So
Right.
that's what's really cool is like there's different sound, like Memphis is coming out soon. Memphis is coming out in a few weeks. It's called Miss Me Memphis, and that one to me feels like exactly how Memphis feels to me. So
Okay.
it's pretty neat. Yeah, I'm really excited for people to hear this project.
Yeah, I'll have to check that one out because I mean I'm curious. I mean I've spent time in Memphis, and hanging out there and stuff. So I'm curious as to what that's going to sound like. But I mean the whole thing is like you said, they each have what you feel like those cities sound like or feel like.
Mhm.
That's how they feel to you is the way you wrote them. I mean, like New York, House of You in New York City. One of the things about it that made me think when I read that about what you said, um, and heard what you said, it just kind of gave me, and I guess that's why I go back to that old school sound because it not only made me think of winter, but it puts you in the mindset of like some of the great crooners like Sinatra, and some of those guys that were, back in the day that just kind of I could hear those songs. And I know you mentioned something in an interview about uh, you were trying to figure out how Billy Joel would do it, and I could hear Billy Joel doing that song,
Yeah,
you
that's
know.
exactly right. That's the crooner thing is interesting. I get that a lot.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, man, I was in jazz. I was like in jazz band growing up, man. Like I was first chair in the state of Ohio in jazz band. So like we played Frank Sinatra all the time, I didn't choose that. It's just some of that's what's part of me. But I also like three chords and the truth. So
Right.
what happens when you fricking combine them sometimes? That's what
Right.
happens. I don't, so yeah, I definitely have all those influences, and I appreciate you saying that because I do.
Yeah.
One of the things I'm almost always saying is like I want to make music that in 50 years people won't look back on it's still listenable and good in 50 years.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
there's like I don't want people to like hate me like they hate hair metal back, you know
Right.
what I'm saying? Yeah.
I got you. I mean, it's just so good because I mean, like I said, it's just really what you've done with it has just been so amazing and so spot on. It's I guess the best word I can think of if I had to put one word to it, refreshing.
Hmm.
It's not your typical, girl in a, get up in the the cab of the truck and got their boots on, they got their shorts on, you're going to go drink beer, that kind of thing. But it's real refreshing. And like I said, it can be played in, I mean, there are several different radio stations that song could be played on. If a pop station wanted to pick it up, they could, and they wanted to pull out the steel guitar, I mean,
Yep.
I don't think there's enough of that in there to make a difference, to make it sound like, oh my gosh, this is a country song, we can't use it,
Right.
um, but it's got such a crossover potential.
Yeah.
That
Well, I appreciate you saying that. Man, that's great to hear, because I'm always trying to, man, I'm like my person. I don't know if you ever taken the Enneagram test before, the personality test.
Yes, yes.
So I'm a 4, which means basically I value things that are different, even if they're worse. So like, just my personality, like I'm seeking, like what's in me is I want to do something different than
Right.
what other people are doing. So that's just something I value. So when you say that it's refreshing, to me, that says, that I'm kind of on the right track, and because that's kind of why I do this,
Right. Right. Well, I mean, we've talked a lot about it, and made I mean, about the music and stuff. I want to delve into some areas, aspects within, like, the industry and things, but kind
Yeah.
of the fun stuff as well. So,
Yeah.
we'll start off by this, because you said you were doing like 200 shows a year. What, and I'll ask this question, and I probably know the answer, but I'm going to ask it. In your shows, were you doing cover tunes?
It was a mix of both.
What was your favorite song to cover?
Ooh. I love doing Fat Bottom Girls by Queen. It's fun. That's a really doing that in a country style. We do like a train beat and really country it up. I love doing that one. I'm trying to think of what else. That one sticks out to me. And then we would do some Eric Church, because people loved that. We used to do like Springsteen and Drink in My Hand. Those were always fun. Oh, man, I used to cover, like, I would do Piano Man, I would do that for the crowd. So a lot of different stuff.
Good stuff there. What's the most embarrassing stage moment you've ever had?
Okay. One time I was opening for Keith Urban and in Florida, and Tom Petty had just died. So this whole crowd of thousands of people, I like just fumbled on my words, and I said, a lot of people have died this year, but I didn't explain. I was about to cover a Tom Petty song, but I didn't explain. It was just like everyone went silent. It was so awkward, and I just fumbled over my words, and I was like, and then we just started the song. Yeah, dude, that's what comes to mind.
Wow. If you could have dinner with one artist that has passed, that's no longer with us, who would the artist be, and what would be the first question that you would ask them?
Off the top of my head, I would say Freddie Mercury, because I think Queen's one of the best bands of all time, and him particularly, I would love to ask him about his writing process. Just because, I mean, dude, they would do just different stuff. Like, they would have like 6 songs and then combine them into one song. That's such an interesting way to do it.
Right.
But dude, definitely Johnny Cash too, because he's a legend. I'm a huge fan. Seemed like a good dude, and man, you could just tell he was in it for the right reasons. Like, he was in it for the love of it, and I would want to hear a bunch of stories, dude. I just bet there's so many crazy stories that are so entertaining that he would have to tell.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So if folks are trying to find out more about Raleigh Keegan, where are they going to go?
I have a website, RaleighKeegan.com, but I also I'm on every social media, and it's all the same, which is nice. It's at Raleigh Keegan, and it's as simple as that. And yeah, and I'll be posting show dates and stuff coming up soon. So, and
Right.
new music's on the way.
That's awesome. I can't wait to hear it. I can't wait to find out the show dates, and maybe I could make it into one. But really looking forward to hearing more from you. And man, thanks for coming on tonight and hanging with me.
Yeah, man.
I've had a fun time talking to you and finding out more about you and listen to your music, dude. It's great. I love
Yeah,
it,
man.
and I think everybody's gonna love it too. So
Thanks,
be sure
George.
to go check out Raleigh. And when you get to his website, I always encourage folks, please, buy merch, and this helps the artist out and helps their dreams get a little bit closer to becoming reality. So be sure to do that. And with his new songs coming out, be sure to pre-save them, and that way you'll get a notification whenever the song comes out. Plus, it also helps the artist as well, so they kind of know where their songs are headed whenever you pre-save them. So definitely want you guys involved with that. Again, Raleigh, man, thanks for coming on. It's been fantastic, and we will catch you around very, very soon, we hope.
Awesome, man. Thank you for having me.
All right, buddy.
All
Take
right,
care.
have a good one.
You too.